Hey guys, today I'll be making a prediction for the 2022 Senate elections. Before we get started, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. So taking a look at this map, I'm going to start off by filling in the solid seats for both parties. These are seats that really these respective parties are not going to lose. They're basically locked in at this point for their party. So the Democratic Party is going to win all across the West Coast. In California, you have incumbent David Padilla, who is appointed just this year to replace Senator Kamala Harris, who is now the vice president, appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom, of course. So in California, Alex Padilla is probably going to have to go through a primary, but whether or not he wins, it's going to be a Democrat running against a Democrat, like we saw in 2018 with Dianne Feinstein, who was in her 80s, and that's really the main reason why she got such an opposition from her own party, because she was just seen as way too old, and that's why Kevin DeLeon was able to do pretty well. Still lost by around 9 points, but he was able to give Dianne Feinstein a run for her money in her 2018 campaign. And then you have the state of Hawaii definitely going to be solid. So California, no matter who it is, it's going to be a Democrat. Moving on to the East Coast here, you have New York, Connecticut, Vermont, Maryland, and Illinois here. So all these seats, all 5 of them are going to be solid for the Democratic Party. There's no doubt about that. So this gives the Democratic Party 45 seats in the Senate. They are basically locked in for the Democrats. For the Republicans, you have quite a few seats here as well. Idaho, Utah, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, and then South Carolina here. You have the incumbent, who is currently Tim Scott. He is much more popular than Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump in his home state, who won by likely margins in 2020. So South Carolina is going to be pretty solid for Tim Scott. Kentucky and Indiana, as well as North and South Dakota, all solid for the Republican Party here, giving them a total of 42 seats. The rest of these seats, I think the margins are going to be a little bit less, but there are really quite a few seats that the respective parties really aren't going to lose. Starting with Florida, you have incumbent Marco Rubio. He ran in 2010 for the first time. He won by a pretty large margin because of a split ticket Democrat coalition in Florida. And then in 2016, after his failed presidential run, he ran for re-election and won pretty easily by a likely margin in Florida, which is pretty good considering how close elections typically are in Florida. But as a third-time incumbent, I think that Marco Rubio will do pretty well in 2022, which is why I think the margin here will remain likely for Marco Rubio. He's pretty popular in Florida, not the most popular, but his popularity there is all right. And I think that with the incumbency factor and the fact that 2022 is probably going to be a little bit better for the Republicans because it is a red wave year, according to historical trends, I think Marco Rubio will do all right in his home state of Florida. Another seat that I think that Republicans really just can't lose is the state of Alaska. So this is currently held by Lisa Murkowski. She is one of the most bipartisan senators in the Senate. She did vote against the COVID-19 $1.9 trillion stimulus bill. She wanted a less a bill where less money was spent on it. But she did vote against Brett Kavanaugh, so she is a little bit more bipartisan than most other Republicans, and she was very upset after the insurrection at the Capitol. So Lisa Murkowski, she is probably going to face a tough Republican challenge there. Donald Trump wants to primary her. Many Republicans want to primary her as well. But at the end of the day, she is going to win her re-election. She's very popular in Alaska, and ranked choice voting is being implemented. So there really is no way that she can lose at this point. She won a write-in campaign, so she wasn't even on the ballot. So in 2010, after being appointed to the senator, to being a senator, she won her re-election. She lost the Republican nomination, but she won re-election with just people physically writing their her name on the ballot. So she is very popular in Alaska, and I just really don't see her losing her re-election anytime soon. A seat here for the Democrats, Colorado, you have Michael Bennett running for re-election. He is very normal. There's nothing special about him. He's just there. Nothing bad about him, nothing too great about him. He was a presidential candidate in 2020. Didn't really do much, was just, there at a couple of debates and then dropped out. So Michael Bennett, he's going to run re-election with a likely margin. It's Colorado. It won't be that difficult for him, but he's much less of a John Hickenlooper who won, by a pretty good margin in Colorado. But Michael Bennett, he'll do all right. And that's that. So that gives the Democrats 46 seats right there. The likely seat, you have the state of New Hampshire, and I forgot who's running here. New Hampshire, you have Maggie Hassan. She is running for re-election, her first re-election. She won for the first time here in 2016. And really depends on who challenges her. If Chris Sununu, who is the Republican governor of New Hampshire, he is really the only one with a chance in New Hampshire. So if Chris Sununu runs, I think this really could go down to, maybe even a lean red state, if not a tilt blue state. So really depends on who runs. But as of right now, Chris Sununu has not said he's going to run. So I'm not going to make that assumption that he is. So Maggie Hassan, I'm going to give it to her right now as likely. Again, it really depends on the candidate in New Hampshire, because you saw Jean Shaheen, really no strong Republican running against her in 2020, and she won the state by a solid margin. Typically, that does not happen. So New Hampshire, right now, since Chris Sununu, the governor, is not running for the Senate seat, as of right now, I will give that seat to the Democratic Party. So that gives the Democrats now 47 seats. And again, they do have the vice presidency, which is why the Democrats only need 50 seats. They only need 50 seats again to win the Senate after 2022, and they currently hold 50, so they do currently control the Senate as of this moment in time. So moving on from this, I want to go to the Midwest here. So starting off with the state of Missouri, this is one that's been talked about quite a bit recently, because incumbent Roy Blunt has announced that he's not going to be running for re-election. And I think that is probably going to hurt the Republican Party in terms of margins there. Definitely Roy Blunt is going to do better as an incumbent than another Republican. So Missouri, it's going to go red. There's no way it's going to, flip blue at this point. Claire McCaskill lost against Josh Hawley in 2018 by around 10 points. And Claire McCaskill said that she's not going to run no matter what because of this retirement. So Claire McCaskill, she's basically done with politics. And so in the state of Missouri, it's going to be red, but it's not going to be solid, in my opinion, because you don't have the incumbency factor. And really, incumbency is very important. If you look at a state like Maine in 2020, Susan Collins, fifth-time incumbent, won her seat when the polls were not in her favor throughout basically the entire election cycle, and Joe Biden won the state by over 7 points. So in the state of Maine, really, incumbency does matter all across the country. That's why you have Democrats in West Virginia, and really where they're from is also very important. You had Kelly Loeffler, who lost in Georgia after being appointed. She wasn't even from the state, so that really did hurt her a lot. So it's about being from the state, being popular in the state, and being an incumbent is also very, very important. So that's why I think Missouri will currently be likely as of right now. Moving on north here in the state of Iowa, this is currently held by Chuck Grassley, who is one of the oldest senators in the country, tied with Dianne Feinstein, both at 87 years old. But Chuck Grassley, if he runs, it's going to be solid. There's no doubt about that. He was the president pro temp, basically the longest serving senator from the party that controls the Senate. Currently is Patrick Leahy, because Democrats have control. But in the state of Iowa, Chuck Grassley is he's very popular there. He's going to win with a solid margin if he runs, but at this point, I really don't expect him to. He has filed the paperwork to do so, but that does not mean that he's really going to run. He would be 94 by the end of this term, which I think is just a little bit of a stretch for him. I think he definitely really could still run, but at this point, I'm not betting on it. So I'm going to give it to the Republicans as likely right now. And again, Iowa, it's a state where at this point, like Missouri, these states were toss-ups in 2008, but Iowa right now it's just not going to go blue at this moment in time. Moving east, Ohio, this is another retirement for the Republican Party. You have Rob Portman, who a couple of weeks ago announced that he would not be running for re-election, and this is not good for them. Ohio does have a Democratic senator right now, and a good Democrat really could do well here in Ohio. So I think that it's going to be lean for right now, just because they have lost the incumbency factor. In Ohio, it is a little bit more blue than Iowa at the end of the day. So the state of Ohio, I'm gonna put as light lean right now for the GOP. It really depends on the candidates again. We're gonna get a good feeling as to who's going to run for these races in a couple of months here after the 2021 election. So Ohio is currently lead on this map, but at this point, it's not going to go blue, really no matter who it is. The state of Wisconsin is a close one. I want to go to that last, but right now I want to move west here to the state of Nevada. You have the incumbent, who is Catherine Cortez Masto, and I think she's pretty average as well. She's like Michael Bennett. I think she's going to do all right. Going to win by a lean margin just like she did in 2016. So this is her first race as an incumbent. I think that'll help her. So Nevada, I think, is going to be lean. She hasn't really done anything special. Nothing that, is negative either. So Catherine Cortez Masto winning re-election in Nevada, as well as that in Arizona. I have Mark Kelly, now the incumbent. He is pretty popular. I mean, he did better than Kirsten Sinema against Martha McSally. I think that he'll do all right. I think that he will win his re-election. Of course, he won a special election in 2020, which is why he is up for re-election again in 2 years. So Arizona, 49 now for the Democratic Party, and they really only need one more. You have another incumbent, Democratic incumbent now in Georgia with Raphael Warnock, who of course won the runoffs in 2020 or 2021, January 6th, 2021, or not 6th, 5th. But Raphael Warnock, with the incumbency and with the fact that he is pretty popular in Georgia, I think that he can win re-election with a tilt margin. This really is going to be one of the closest races for the Democrats. Really, this is the closest race for the Democrats. But I think that in 2022, unless there's a really strong candidate, I really don't see Raphael Warnock losing. Of course, he had David Perdue, who's rumored to run again a couple of weeks ago, but he decided to not do that. Kelly Loeffler is still a potential nominee for the Republicans. Of course, that was who lost to Raphael Warnock earlier this year, but Loeffler, even if she ran again, she's not going to do any better. She lost the incumbency factor, and she's just not popular in general, not popular among Trump supporters either, because she did not support trying to stall the electoral vote count after the insurrection. She basically changed her mind and chickened out of that for the Republicans. So she's not going to do well in Georgia at all, and I really don't see any other candidate from Georgia that would really do that great. Brian Kemp, he's basically been slaughtered by Donald Trump and a lot of Republicans. So Georgia, I would say, is a tilt blue state right now for Raphael Warnock. Moving on, North Carolina, Richard Burr, the Republican incumbent, announced that he would not be running for re-election quite a while ago. And North Carolina is a pretty close state. Biden lost the state by just 1%. And I think that in 2022, this state really could flip, which is why right now I have it as tilt Dem. I think that really if Cal Cunningham didn't have that scandal in 2020, I think he really could have won this seat. He, of course, had a sexting scandal with, I believe, someone that was working for him. So he basically got himself divorced, and I think that really did hurt him a lot. I think that if that hadn't happened, he was probably going to win. He was leading by over 10 points, and he really had a very, very good chance, and he really did screw up for the Democratic Party. And so that gives the Democrats now 51 seats. I want to move on to Pennsylvania. Pat Toomey, who is another Republican incumbent that is not running for re-election. This being a state that Joe Biden won by almost 2%. And I think that Pennsylvania will probably go blue in 2022. Again, it depends on the candidates, which we don't have right now. But Pennsylvania is a blue state. On the electoral map, they do have a Democrat senator there already, and I really do think that Pennsylvania, if the candidate is good for the Dems, they really can't flip this seat, and that would give the Democratic Party here 52 seats. The final seat here is Ron Johnson's in Wisconsin. I'm going to put it as tilt red for right now. I think that there's definitely a good chance that Ron Johnson does retire. He said in 2016 when he was running for re-election that this term would be his last. He would not run for governor or a third term in 2022, but since then he has taken those words back, which is why right now he is expected to run again, or he might change his mind on that again, but as of right now, he is currently not running for re-election. So if you go down to Wisconsin, we'll take a look at that later, but if you look at Wisconsin right now, the incumbent's intent is unknown. So if there's a good Democrat there and Ron Johnson does not run for re-election, he definitely could flip. But if Ron Johnson does run, I think that right now it would still benefit him. He is the incumbent, and this is to say that Joe Biden barely won, much smaller margin than expected. So this is my Senate map prediction right now. The Democrats at 52 and Republicans at 48. Remember, Democrats only need 50 to win, and Republicans need to flip at least one seat. But with this map, they are currently losing 2 seats, the seats in North Carolina and Pennsylvania, where the Republican incumbents are not running for re-election, and that is going to hurt them a lot. And then looking at the betting odds, I do want to take a quick look at this. Right now, Democrats have a 57-cent share, the Republicans at 46. And this has basically changed a lot since the January 5th runoffs in Georgia. I'm not sure why this is taking such a long time to load, but if you look at this graph, as you can see, basically right after the runoff, the Republicans lost so much of their chances here because those 2 seats were pretty vital. If the Republicans held on to those 2 seats in Georgia, it would be really, really hard for Democrats to win the Senate under the Joe Biden presidency. But as of right now, the Democrats have a pretty good chance at retaining control. All they have to do is not lose any seats, and with so many Republicans retiring in these key states, it is not looking good for them. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you guys will think will happen in the 2022 Senate election in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. Join my Discord server if you have not, and I will see you guys in the next video.